The air inside the Grand Seoul Convention Hall was thick with anticipation. Rows of seats were filled to capacity. The stage bathed in soft amber light, and camera lenses glimmered like a field of tiny stars aimed at the woman standing center stage. Moon Ga-young looked every bit the picture of elegance, her cream-colored dress catching the light just enough to glow, but her eyes betrayed a storm of emotion. She held the microphone in both hands. Not to perform but to speak. The crowd had expected the event to be about her latest project. Perhaps a few behind-the-scenes stories and playful banter. No one could have predicted the way this night would unfold. It began subtly, her voice steady as she greeted the audience. Her smile warm but tinged with something they couldn't quite name. She thanked the fans for coming. Expressed gratitude for their unwavering support. But then, when the name Eun-woo slipped from her lips, something shifted. Her tone softened. She paused for a fraction of a second too long. Her gaze dropped to the floor. When she looked up again, her eyes glistened under the stage lights. "I've never told this to anyone before," she began. Her words laced with hesitation. "But I think it's time the world knows what he went through." A ripple of murmurs ran through the room. The kind of collective reaction that comes when people realize they are about to witness something extraordinary, and possibly painful. She exhaled, as if the air in her lungs had turned heavy. It was a time when Eun-woo almost walked away from everything. From music, from acting, from the world he had worked so hard to build. Gasps broke the silence. The statement landed like a stone in still water, sending shockwaves through every heart in the room. Her voice trembled, just enough to make it impossible for anyone to look away. She spoke of a period shrouded in shadows, a time when the public saw the glamorous facade of a rising star but never imagined the battles he fought in private. Rumors had swirled online, vicious and unfounded, chipping away at his confidence day after day. He never said it outright, she continued. But I could see it in his eyes. He was tired, not the kind of tired that sleep can fix, but the kind that makes you question why you're even here. All was so silent now that the faint hum of the air conditioning felt intrusive. Moon Ga-young described the first time she realized something was deeply wrong. It was at a commercial shoot, one of those long, grueling days where the script kept changing and the lighting adjustments seemed endless. She noticed Eun-woo sitting off to the side. His gaze unfocused. His usual easy smile nowhere to be found. He looked like he was there, but not really there, she recalled. Her throat tightening. It was like his body was present, but his spirit had gone somewhere far away. That night, she sent him a simple text, "Are you okay?" The reply came hours later, "I don't know." That was the beginning of a series of late-night conversations. Sometimes over the phone. Sometimes in person. Would sit on a quiet park bench. A thermos of hot tea between them. Speaking in half-sentences that didn't need to be finished because the silence said enough. She never pressed him to explain. She just let him know she was there. The tremor in her voice deepened as she told the audience about the night. She almost lost him, not in the physical sense, but in spirit. He had messaged her after midnight, saying he couldn't see the point anymore. She didn't think. She didn't wait. She grabbed her coat, poured the pouring rain, and ran to his place. He opened the door. His hair was messy. Red. He didn't speak. And neither did she, not at first. She simply took his hands, cold and shaking, into hers and whispered, "If the world turns its back on you, I won't." It was in that moment, she said, that something shifted. He cried. Let it out, all the pressure, the fear, the exhaustion. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was talking to my friend again. The shadow he had become. The audience was visibly moved. Several fans in the front row dabbed at their eyes. Others clasped their hands over their mouths. And some of the photographers lowered their cameras, as if capturing the moment would somehow diminish its rawness. She went on to recount the slow, fragile process of helping him heal. It wasn't about grand gestures. It was the small things, dropping by with his favorite tteokbokki, lending him songs she thought he'd like, reminding him to drink water during his endless rehearsals. It wasn't easy, she admitted. Some days he would retreat again. And I had to remind myself not to take it personally. Healing isn't a straight line. Revelation was not just a story, it was an unmasking. World of glitz and perfection. Hearing a star speak openly about vulnerability felt almost surreal. And yet, there she was, standing under the lights, voice shaking but steady enough to carry the truth. "I'm telling you this," she said finally, "because I know how easy it is to believe that someone has it all together just because they look the part. But behind the smiles, there are battles you can't see." Now, the hashtag #StayStrongCheon-woo was already beginning to trend on social media. Even as she was still speaking, fans in the audience had tears streaming down their faces, their phones forgotten in their laps. Moon Ga-young wasn't just telling a story, she was giving them a piece of herself, showing them the invisible threads of friendship, loyalty, and quiet courage. She paused, her eyes sweeping the crowd. "There's more," she promised, her lips pressing together in a brief, almost nervous smile. "Maybe we should take a break." The room erupted into applause, not the loud, raucous kind, but a deep, resonant appreciation for the weight of what they had just heard. And somewhere in the midst of it all, the question lingered like a heartbeat: what exactly had happened to Cheon-woo? And how had she managed to pull him back from the edge? The second half of her story would not come until later in the evening, after a brief intermission. But no one left their seats. The air was thick with expectation, the kind that makes minutes stretch into eternities. She returned to the stage. She carried the same microphone, but this time, there was a different energy about her. Determination. A sense that she was ready to let the final veil drop. Began by taking everyone back in time to the peak of Eun-woo's career, when the world saw him as untouchable. But behind the scenes, a scandal had erupted. Details were murky, the allegations baseless, but they were enough to ignite a firestorm online. Comment sections became battlegrounds. His name dragged through rumor and innuendo. He stopped reading anything about himself, Moon Ga-young said. But the damage was done. He felt like no matter what he did, people had already decided who he was. The toll it took was visible: weight loss, sleepless nights, an almost palpable withdrawal from the world. "Remember one day on set," she said. He forgot his lines. That never happened before. He just stared at the floor, like the words had slipped right out of his head. Weeks, she became his anchor. If he didn't eat, she brought him food. If he didn't want to leave the house, she coaxed him out with a promise of anonymity, late-night drives to empty streets, where they could park and just listen to music in the dark. She became the one person he didn't have to pretend for. The turning point came when she convinced him to meet with a trusted director who offered him a role in a small, low-pressure project. It wasn't about making a comeback, she explained. About reminding him that he still loved what he did. Slowly, the spark returned. He laughed more, slept better, began working out again. And when that project finally aired, it was met with warmth rather than judgment, a reminder that the world's opinion could change. And so could his own. By the time Moon Ga-young finished speaking, the audience was on its feet. Some clapped, others cried, many did both. Closed her eyes for a moment, then said, "Behind the glamour, there are battles no one sees. If you take anything from this tonight, let it be this: be kind. Know what someone is carrying." From the wings of the stage, Eun-woo appeared, not as the idol in immaculate styling. The man she had just described, a little older, a little wiser, and infinitely more human. He joined her at the center, their eyes meeting in a silent exchange of gratitude. Applause swelled, and for a moment, the entire hall felt united, not by celebrity, but by compassion.